Welcome to SportsWire, a weekly talk show brought to you by the Garden City Telegram. I'm sports editor Brett Marshall.
And I'm sports reporter Levi Burnfin. This week we'll be talking about Garden City Community College's loss to Hutchinson, as well as the Garden City High School's win over Wichita East. We'll also be previewing this week's game on Friday and Saturday.
Levi, the Broncbusters continued a tough season under first-year coach Jeff Sims with a home loss to Hutchinson last Saturday night at Broncbuster Stadium. Competitive first half. What did you take away from the game after it kind of got out of hand in the second half?
Yeah, the first half was competitive. Now, Garden City was helped out by a couple of bad interceptions by Hutchinson's QBs, which has been a problem for them pretty much all season. They can't find a QB that's been consistent. They helped out Garden City there with a couple of touchdowns, and Garden City even took a lead 14-7 there. But after that, it was 42 straight points for the Blue Dragons, who just ran it down Garden City's throat. By the end, you could tell that the big problems for Garden City is their depth. Hutchinson just rolled in guy after guy after guy in the running game. 4 different running backs went over 100 yards. First time in Hutchinson's history that's happened.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. They racked up 493 rushing yards, and those 4 guys were spectacular in doing so. And Garden City just doesn't have the guys to compete right now on both sides of the ball. They've got a good front, starting 11. After that, it drops off pretty quickly. And after Saturday's game, I also talked to Jeff Sims a little bit about what ails the Garden City Community College Busters, and this is what he had to say.
Was depth an issue? I would say depth and strength and size and I said this last week. Right now we're young and we're not strong, and we have a lot of great kids out there battling, but we have to get them in the weight room and we have to develop them. Is there anything that we could have done to stop the running game? Yes, there's definitely things that we could have done. Mm-hmm. We weren't calling plays so that they could run 10 yards at a time. Right. But where it comes down to is I'm 43 years old, and I used to be a pretty good football player, and if I tell myself to do something, sometimes my body just doesn't respond. And as you get later in the season, your depth is lower and your guys are tired, they're a step slower than they were, and I think they ran 3 backs tonight, and they had 2 quarterbacks coming in, and so they're bringing in waves of dudes, and if you go to a Hutchinson Community College right now, you're going to redshirt, you're going to go there and you're going to sit and wait your turn, where right now we have opportunity, and so we're bringing guys in, and they're actually getting on the yard and playing, and just like anywhere else, next year, these guys who have experience are going to be playing, and then we're going to bring in a new group of guys, and now we're getting some depth, and there's going to be some rotating and things like that. So, to me, it's encouraging when Dodge City's in first place right now, and we're up 14 points on them. Highland's a good team. We beat them. Air Force, we're beating them to the last minute of the game. Hutch, we got a lead on them, and we're battling them. But when guys start getting exhausted and tired and stuff like that, they just wear down.
Hutchinson's game plan on Saturday kind of reminded me a little bit of Garden City High School's game plan this entire season. Just run it, and run it some more, and that's what they did on Friday against Wichita East.
Well, they did. They got to 6-0 for the first time since 1991 with a 55-7 win over Wichita East. The crazy thing about this group of Garden City players and team is that they seem to like to get behind right at the beginning of the game. This week it was 39 seconds into the first quarter when Wichita East scored on a 74-yard touchdown pass. It was the only score of the night for them, and after that it was all Garden City. They just rolled and rolled and rolled. And they had a good passing game, too, I think, for the first time, that I noticed that they spread the ball around, ran some really nice routes. Jesse Nunes found, 4 different receivers, 2 of them for touchdown passes, and then just really rolled. But the highlight of the night was Jared Coster.
Yeah.
155 yards rushing, became the school's all-time leading rusher, eclipsing Broderick Smith. And the cool part of it was he got the record on a 60-yard run that he broke it to the outside and then went to the house untouched.
Perfect Coster fashion.
It was just, that's his style of running. I mean, he's got the speed, and he just took it to the house, and it was really fun to see. And it was really cool to hear him talk about the offensive line and what they've been doing. You know, they've been inviting the offensive line over to one of the running backs' house on Wednesdays and feeding them dinner. And like he said afterwards, it's been working, hasn't it?
Yeah. Also on Friday night in the area, we had a really big game against Ulysses and Scott City. Something that we thought coming into the game could be, a really tight contest, and ended up not being. What happened on Friday night?
Well, I think what happened is that Scott City's defense figured out Ulysses' offense, and really shut down Ian Rudzik for the first time in a long time. I mean, he didn't score a touchdown for the second year in a row, but he only had 27 yards rushing.
Yeah, that was the big thing.
It's huge. I mean, this is a kid who was averaging 246 yards a game. He's got 7,000 yards rushing in his career. Just pretty crazy stats, and he just couldn't run anywhere. And so it was truly a dominant performance by Scott City, who's ranked number one, by some polls in the state, number three in a couple others. Glenn O'Neill's team just seems to be, catching steam and rolling along right now, middle part of the season. For Ulysses, it's kind of, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit and see exactly what happened. And now that everybody gets ready for district play this coming week. And so the important games are really coming up. That's one in the past, but it was certainly a big win for Scott City.
Yeah, and Ulysses, it's good for them to see a defense like Scott City, show them a little bit what defense is going to try to do to Ulysses to slow Rudzik down, because he's obviously number 1, 2, and 3 options. And so when Scott City kind of shut him down, they got to find a little bit of something else they can show to opposing defenses. Maybe they have to defend in the future.
Well, it kind of reminded me, last week in the preview, Jason Kinney, the Ulysses coach, said that maybe they could steal one from Scott City, because he's only beaten them once or twice in the whole time that he's been there, and they couldn't do it. So again, Glenn O'Neill and his staff, I think kudos to them for scouting and looking at a lot of film and figuring out exactly what they thought Ulysses was going to do, and it seemed to work. Well, this Saturday provides the Broncbusters an opportunity maybe to get a win in the Jayhawk Conference this time around. They go to Fort Scott. Fort Scott's been struggling a lot, just like the Broncbusters have. This is where Jeff Sims used to coach.
Yeah.
He had him in the national championship game 6 or 7 years ago. Jeff Kelly's the defensive coordinator there. He used to be here at Garden City. A lot of little storylines behind it. What do you think about this coming week's game?
Yeah, there's a lot of connections. Jeff Sims did coach there for 4 years, from 2007 to 2010. Took him to the national championship in 2009 against the Cam Newton-led junior college team. They lost that game, but he had a lot of success there. Jeff Kelly, like you said, coached here, was defensive coordinator, now Fort Scott. And also Garden City's starting quarterback from last year, Denarius Graham, he's now the starter quarterback for Fort Scott last year. So there's a lot of little connections.
Pretty crazy when you think about it, all the different pieces of that puzzle.
Absolutely. And Fort Scott, and both teams are struggling, but I'm sure both teams are going to be up for this game. It could be one of the few games that either team has a chance to win for the rest of the season. And it'd be good to get another win for the Busters. I mean, they won their first game of the season against Highland, and they've lost 6 straight. To just get another win, get a little taste of victory, would be something important. Get them a little bit hungrier to keep progressing, get them a little bit of momentum going in the offseason, so kids will stick around and prepare for next year. Garden City High School is 6-0, as you mentioned earlier, and they've had a lot of success, but now begins the real part of the schedule, the part that they thought could be their hardest part, and that begins Friday versus Hutchinson. Well,
it's true. You played 6 games now, and it's kind of like preseason.
Yeah.
They count, but they really don't count. District play, you got 3 opponents. The top 2 teams out of the 4 advance to the postseason playoffs, and Hutchinson is the first roadblock, and it's a big roadblock.
Yeah.
They got pile drive last year at Hutchinson, 62-14. It seemed to catapult the Salthawks all the way to the state championship game last year. They were 2-4.
Yeah, they're struggling going into that game.
Oh, they had not done very well up until that game, and it just like the light bulb came on for them after the big win against Garden. 2 years ago, Hutch comes out here. It's last year that Randy Dreiling coached for them, that coached them to all the state championship games during the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And, Garden City was behind at halftime. They rallied for a 35-24 win. First time in 10 years that Garden had beaten them. So it's really developed into a nice rivalry. But With the new scheduling for 2016 and 17, Garden and Hutch won't be on the regular season schedule.
Yeah.
So this really takes on a little added importance. Ryan Cornelson, the coach at Hutchinson, used to coach at Hayes High. So Coach Brian Hill is familiar with him. A lot of things, of interest, but the biggest thing is whoever wins is 1-0 in the district, and whoever loses, they still have 2 tough teams to play after that. Well, I had a chance to visit with Coach Hill prior to this coming week's game against Hutchinson, and he's certainly excited for his kids, and this is some of the things that he had to say in looking ahead to the Salt Hawks.
Well, we see a very, very good football team that's very well coached and extremely physical on both sides of the ball, and they've played very well. They've played a very tough schedule, and playing Derby, they're the only team that has beat them, and but they are very, very good. Well, I think many of them were there, with all the kids that we have coming back, and they understand the physical nature in which they played with and the precision that they played with. They didn't make very many mistakes last year. We did. We jumped off sides. We gave up big plays. We had a lot of negative rushes, and we just found out that you can't do that, especially against a good football team. And I think that's what we've really been trying to reduce, these first 6 weeks. I think the kids have done a great job of what we've been able to work with, and I think we're ready to play a team like this.
This time of year is all prep football, but there are other sports going on, and Monday was a big one for area golf. What happened on Monday?
Well, Monday, the Garden High girls golf team won their Class 6A regional in Dodge City to qualify for the state tournament, which will be in Wichita next Monday. And then the Syracuse girls finished second at their 3-2-1A regional on their home course. Holcomb's girls qualified at Goodland in Class 4A. Cimarron's girls also qualified as a team, and Lakin's girls had 1 or 2 individuals that qualified. So kind of a big day for some of the area spring sports. And then last Saturday, the Garden High girls tennis team finished second in their regional tournament and qualified for their girls to go to the state tennis tournament this Friday and Saturday. So for those teams and what a lot of people call minor sports, it was a big weekend, and a lot of good kids have a chance to go and experience the state tournaments this coming weekend. That's it for this week. I'm Brett Marshall.
And I'm sports reporter Levi Burnfin. You've been watching Sports Wire, a weekly talk show brought to you by the Garden City Telegram.
You can catch our show every Thursday at 5 p.m. at www.gctelegram.com, and thanks for watching.